All right, welcome in. KSO Postgame Live here, ready to rock. 11:10 p.m. Central Time, starting right on time because K-State ended on time in Tempe. So big shouts to the refs for really just kind of letting the boys play tonight, except for when Adam Miller did who knows what. We still don't know. I'm sure as Jerome Tang speaks, we're going to get some clarification on that right now. Let's start right here with Eric saying to spam the chat with DNG appreciation. Uh, Absolutely, go for it, fill it up because David Gasson filled it up tonight and was big time for K State. He had the missed free throw that would have put K State up double digits, and you felt like missing that front end was big, so that would have hurt. But he was 5 of 6 at the line. You will take that. He hit 2 big ones late and then 8 boards. But most importantly, 22 points tonight. And not to be underrated is the 1-3 he hit, which I'm not going to say he had no business hitting it, but it was one of those that I did apologize to my one Arizona State friend and said, I'm sorry if DNG's hitting that on you. So it was a good night for K-State because they come away with a 71-70 win on the road against Arizona State. 4th straight win for the Wildcats as they get past the Sun Devils. It was a wild game. K-State starts off as cold as you possibly could. They were down 18-2 to start. And then finally, they turned it on. And the last part of the first half, they end up leading 35-32 at the break. They get all the way up by 13 in the second half. And you start to kind of think to yourself, man, they may not even be pressured in this game. I thought we were getting close to that, but Arizona State was taking enough threes throughout the course of the game that you just needed a couple to find the bottom of the bucket, and you could be in it just like that. Sure enough, they were. They even took the lead, but K-State once again proving that they haven't quit and that they've found a whole nother gear of resiliency throughout this season. Took the lead, hung on by dear life at the end. Quaintance goes to the line, terrible free throw shooter. He misses both. K-State is able to get the ball. They fling it out. Max Jones secures it, and that is the ball game. So the Cats, 71-70 winners. Drew, later night for you because you're on the road right now, so you're in a whole different time zone than where K-State played and where most of us are residing. So it's actually Wednesday for Drew currently. So everybody, high fives to Drew in the chat for sticking with us. What were your takeaways from that game? Because I'm still a little blown away by what I saw.
I'm like still trying to wrap my head around the entire game and like where I want to go with some of my post game takeaways because it felt like 3 or 4 different games in one. Like to start down 15-0, it gets to 18-2, and then K State takes the lead. Like you said, they get up to 13. The whole time I'm thinking like, okay, K State's probably going to run this up, and then we're going to have another laugh tomorrow, kind of talking about that. It was going to end up being like another game where you look at the metrics and Bart Torvik's going to love the Cats even more and keep them at their number one of the last few weeks. But then Arizona State comes back, and I think this is my biggest takeaway of the game overall. K State has shown a ton of resolve in these last 4 games, and even the last 6. If you go back to the KU and Baylor games on the road, they are finding their groove and kind of figuring out who they are. And you can't bury them. Like this was easily another time where K-State could have just been buried. It is concerning to start this way on the road. And this is 3 of the last 4 games on the road that K-State has had to take a timeout before the first media timeout. So that's not great. But you kind of
Never a
look at
good
this
sign
as
when that happens because those
no,
timeouts are valuable. But Jerome
yes.
Tang did a nice job of holding on to the others and maybe too good of a job there at the end. And we'll get into some of that game management stuff in a little bit.
But you look at this and they did enough to win, and I think that's something that can really be commended because like we pointed out, like DY's pointed out, this is a tough way to or a tough spot for a team to win. A lot of really, really good teams lose this game to Arizona State when it's sandwiched between playing an emotional game at Iowa State, where even though they won by 19, that's an easy spot to kind of feel good about yourself and be like, oh, we just destroyed the number 3 team in the country, and now we're playing Arizona State on the road, who isn't very good. And then you get that, and you also have the look ahead to KU. And K-State started slow, like a team that had really been feeling good about themselves, but then really came back and really played really well for probably the last 20 minutes, or the 20 of the last 25 minutes of the game.
Yeah, I mean, we can dive into immediately some of the comments that people are throwing out there because they're going to be mainly the talking points of this game. We'll start with Danny Boy here. He's got a couple of good ones in there, but he said, "Are we buying in yet, guys, or are we still on the fence? And is the KU game where we could go all in after a victory? Go Cats!" Uh, I'll look at it this way: if they win on Saturday, then you can start to maybe even think a little bit crazier. And instead of saying that it's not possible at all that they can make this miraculous run that they need, it becomes a little bit more realistic, especially if they prove that they can duplicate and beat a top 25 team, really a top 15 team, like they did Iowa State already. But then you beat Kansas, you prove you can do it at home, because then you're going to have to turn around and do it against Arizona real quick. But what I am buying into, and I was never fully out on necessarily on Jerome Tang. Now, this team, I didn't think that there was going to be any salvaging, but the fact that they were able to bring this team and some of these players back from what seemed like the basketball dead in terms of their mentality and personality, I am all the way in on that. And you look more and more of these guys on this team, you start to go, man, that you're going to like having that guy back next year. Or a guy like Coleman Hawkins, you're going to be very appreciative of what he was able to do during this stretch to kind of keep things together and provide to K-State and at least make the rest of this season enjoyable. So I'm not going to buy into the NCAA tournament is still a possibility, but I am bought into, I think this thing is going to work moving forward, and it might work even better and faster than we thought it might. Because I think they've got this thing rolling right now in a good spot. And even if they had lost that game in crappy fashion tonight, wouldn't have felt good. It would have been disappointing. You don't want to lose to a team like Arizona State because they're obviously very poorly coached. But the fact that they got down so big early, and I don't think they were really doing anything too bad. Arizona State hit some shots coming out that, as we saw from like the next 25 minutes of the game, they did not make. And then K-State was ice cold. Now, K-State should have done a better job with some of their shot selection when they were cold, but most of the shots I thought were good ones, and they just weren't falling. But they stuck in it. They had the lead by halftime. And again, when you're up as big as they were in the second half, and then you fall behind, would have been easy to just say, "Ah, crap, they got us. It's over." They didn't do that. They found a way to get the win. That's all that matters. And I think we can just look at the last two games and take the aggregate of you beat Iowa State and Arizona State by a combined 20 points, and everybody can be happy with that.
Yeah, I'd say I'm not all the way bought in on potentially making the NCAA tournament, but I think that I'm bought into that the rest of the season could still be pretty fun and have some pretty fun wins. And to answer the second question about does a victory over KU buy you all the way in or not? Even before they beat Iowa State, I thought that K State was going to beat one of Iowa State or KU at home. So that doesn't really do a whole lot for me yet. But it's really fun to enjoy this 4 game win streak, like somebody else has said in the comments. I mean, there for a while, it looked like K State could potentially like lose out. So they're doing something right here.
Yeah, we went from thinking that this team could, whatever, to now there's some fight in them, and here they sit, basically, a game away from 500 in Big 12 play. And again, people didn't like when I did it against Iowa State, but it just puts it into perspective. It makes it a lot tougher to consider what happened in the non-con, because this team is doing enough to where if they just not been so bad at times in non-conference play, we are talking about them as an NCAA tournament team. But don't worry about that. They're playing well right now, and they gave you an awesome game and experience on Saturday in Ames to beat a team that you really wanted to beat, and now they have themselves aligned to give you every chance to enjoy a third straight win over KU and Bramlage on Saturday. We'll talk about that more by the end of the show and later on in the week. A couple other questions. Garrett asked about the officiating in the first half. I'll tell you this much. I didn't even notice the refs in this game really, just because both teams played so bad at different stretches. I was amazed by the horrible shot selection by Arizona State. The first time that I really noticed the refs was when they had to call the flagrant two that we still don't seem to know exactly what happened. So I'm fascinated to see because I think DY is the only K State media member in Tempe tonight. So I'm fascinated on what his conversation with Jerome and the Cats is going to go and see maybe if he provides any update on what happened there. But this is I want to point out the irony of all this. Arizona State had a player play in tonight's game in BJ Freeman that headbutted an Arizona player on Saturday, and he was kicked out of the game. And he played tonight. And after the game, Bobby Hurley said that Arizona didn't win with class. And then 2 days later, Bobby Hurley's team returns home and they have a different player get ejected from the game from something that was not physical in terms of a hard foul or something because we just saw him there. Uh, Wild look for Bobby Hurley to be talking about class versus no class and have back-to-back games with different players ejected. But yeah, the refs, I didn't really notice them over the course of the game. If anything, there were a couple times where I looked at what K-State had going on. I was like, they got lucky and got away with something there. What are the refs doing? But overall, I mean, we finished the game before 11 o'clock. Like, that's a credit to the refs.
Yeah, the only ref thing that I'll say is that it is kind of wild to see that 31 free throws were shot in a game that also included 63 three-pointers. So it was just a wild game, kind of all around. So I didn't really notice the refs until the flagrant two. If anything, I mean, that's a great foul call to get Clinton's at the free throw line at the end.
Yeah, I mean, it was a unique experience for that to end the way that it did. Really good foul by K State there in the moment. A couple of other things that we'll get to comments wise in terms of looking at how the game has looked into this. I do want to point out that the way that K State ended up winning this game was the fact that the shooting continued to be good, like we had kind of noticed. There was an uptick in it, and they struggled to start. I thought maybe there was a cold spell coming for them, but they bounced back. They got it to 39% from three, and their defense, as they showed to be very capable of against Iowa State, was if you're not a shooter, we are going to let you take the shot. And that's what allowed them to get back in this game. Now, Arizona State was much more obliging with it than I think any other team in the Big 12 would have been. But K-State found their way, got back in it, and that was impressive with how they ended up going there. There were a couple other comments that I wanted to get into, but we'll start, Drew, by your thoughts on what a couple of the guys that are newcomers to the team this year did in this game, because we know David Gasson had a fantastic game, but Max Jones did what you've been asking for him to do. He shot the ball more. Brendan Hazen, for the second straight game, I thought it really popped seeing him do more than just shoot the ball really well to impact the game, which is something that did not seem like it was a possibility for Brendan Hazen to do. I was preparing people. He's just a shooter. He's not going to do anything else for you. So what did you make of those two guys?
Yeah, Max Jones, I've joked about it the last two times now. Find a way to get him another year. If D2 guys are gonna sue the NCAA, have Max Jones come back because he's been Casey's second, third best player during this win streak and was one of the best players before the win streak too. So just kind of see his growth and the aggression really take over. I think has been fun. He is a great glue guy. Does a little bit of everything. Hit some big shots tonight, and some tough shots. Like the shot that he took and made to get K State off the board when it was 15-0 was one of the toughest shots that I think that he's made all season. And then he turned around and made another tough shot in the second half. And then Brendan Hazen, the armadillo assassin, as he's affectionately going to be known as now forever. he can do a lot of things now, and I think that that's fun to see him kind of be active on the defensive end, and he's defending the way that you've wanted him to all season long. So Max and Brendan apparently listened to the show because they both did what we've wanted them to do all season long.
Yeah, that's no lie. They did step up and do that. Let's get into a couple of the other things from the comments that I did want to throw out there and how this goes. Another one from Danny. He said, "We held on just enough, but is this a win or do we back into this? I think this game was a trap game considering our next opponent." The fact that K-State got the win, I don't think you back into winning a game when you were down 18-2 to start and it looked as grim as it ended up being. While at the end of the game, the last couple minutes, they definitely did back their way into a victory. I don't think that's how you classify this. You go on the road any way you can get the win, you do it, especially when you consider this team lost by 1,000 to Oklahoma State. You take it, you call it good, you move on, and now you come home and you get to face KU. Now, other game management stuff, and this might play into backing into a win. We have some questions about Jerome Tang's timeout usage in the game, not using one until ASU got the bucket to go up late. And then also, once again, late clock situation in the second half where K-State, there's about 11-second differential. K-State is up 1 point. K-State gets not anything that made you go, oh, I see what they were doing here, which is wild because at other points in the game, I thought we started to see more of those flashes that we were used to where out of timeouts, Jerome Tang was really good in that first year. They came out, they got the looks they wanted. They set something up, baseline or sideline, like they were good out of bounds. Not good again in a late game situation. What do you make of how Jerome Tang coached this game and how you how you try to fix it moving forward? Because I think again, you do still have some concerns about what this team's plan is late in the game.
Yeah, I just feel like you got to find a way to call timeouts earlier. Like I don't know who is going to be the one that like needs to step up on the coaching staff and say like we got to call timeout sooner. But it was clear that in the second half that K State needed a timeout when Arizona State was starting to go on a run, and then they go up and you get the timeout. And that's what's frustrating too is out of that timeout was one of the times where we saw K State get a great look out of a timeout and get David Gasson a bucket. So he could have called one earlier. The late clock situation, I'm at the point now where I'm just kind of saying it kind of just is what it is because there just isn't really many teams out there in college basketball that get a good shot in a situation like that.
Yeah, it might be time to maybe change up who has the ball or find a way to at least fling the ball to Brennan Hazen. Your best shooter, give him an opportunity. I don't know. It's tough, but I think people at least want to have it look like you're doing something or giving yourself an opportunity. I know sometimes the best thing is just to kind of throw something up and pray, but you can't do that every time. We'll see how that moves going
By the
forward.
way, I'm seeing a lot of people kind of being disappointed in the outcome. K State won. They've won 4 in a row. They were underdogs going into tonight and won. And like we've said, and you said it better than I'll say it, but if you win a game on the road in Big 12 play, you don't care how it looks. You
Yeah.
won.
Yeah, especially on the road. You take that, you move on. A couple other comments talking about Moby and the performance that Moby Ike gave K-State tonight. I thought that he performed up and down. It started off a little bit of a struggle, but I think K-State obviously thought that they needed him in tonight's game, that his athleticism and again, just knowing his role was going to be necessary in this game. He figured it out. He did some good things throughout. And I don't know what the long-term future looks like for him as a player, but at this current point in time, he's giving you a good 7 to topped out at 13 minutes tonight, where you can trust him. He's going to go in there, and I don't think he's worried about anything other than this is what my teammates and coaches need from me. I'm going to do it, and I'm not expecting anything else. And that goes to why we've talked about it. He's replaced Buddy Rich because there's only one spot for a guy like that on a basketball team that can actually play. And Moby's got the attitude to earn the minutes, and he's getting it. So pretty interesting to see how that goes. Any other general thoughts before we dive into some of the player-by-player stuff? Because I really think basically everybody that played tonight except David Castillo probably is worth touching on quickly what they did, because I saw things from all of them that were either good or bad.
So just more general thoughts about the game. I think that it was nice to see that you could kind of get a lot of scoring from other guys. Like Doug McDaniel has 7 points, Coleman Hawkins only has 11 points, and K-State still pulls it out. But I'm just going to highlight just how crazy it is that this is probably the closest K-State's had to having two guys get a triple-double in a game. I would imagine. I mean, they're both right there.
Yeah, at one point it seemed like Doug was maybe going to be on his way there, and then everything kind of slowed down. We'll get into right now the team and the player-by-player stuff, because Ray asks, the bench is looking pretty shallow right now. Is this a problem for a deep run late in the season? I mean, I think the way this team was built, they thought that they were going to be a little bit deeper than this, and that they weren't going to shorten the rotation up as much as they did. But this is what most basketball teams end up being. Now, the problem is that one of the guys in the essentially 7-man rotation that K-State has right now is CJ Jones, and his last 2 games have not been very good. He was once again just not in a good spot tonight, didn't perform very well. So that's concerning, and that's one of the guys that I wanted to bring up, because I think you look at him and you go, you're going to need him to maybe step up and do something on Saturday if you're to beat KU. He profiles as a guy that is going to have some plays that he makes kind of out of nowhere to help you get over the hump there. But this is what K-State is right now. You're going to have to ride with mainly your starters, because that's the best chance you have at scoring, and then pick your spots where you can get rest for certain guys and replacing them with CJ Jones and Moby A.K. Garuka.
Yeah, I'd say I'm a little bit concerned, but these last 2 games from CJ aren't super concerning for me. Role players play a lot better at home, so I wouldn't be surprised if he looks a lot better on Saturday.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, Doug McDaniel, you mentioned him, had a great game out there. Also, by the way, CJ Jones, we know plus minus, not great, whatever. He was minus 15 tonight, so that does tell the story in this game. David Castillo also only played 3 minutes. He was minus 11 on the plus minus this evening, so that clears things up. But Doug, you're seeing the flashes. This is what everybody wanted to see. He's making the passes, some of them too good for Coleman Hawkins to even realize what was going on. They led to turnovers ultimately. But now I was a little worried. We had that moment where after the flagrant 2 and the technical on Doug happened, he did kind of shove Rodney Perry off, and you go, oh, okay, this feels like the Doug that only played 3 minutes against Wichita State that there were some concerns about. I think that was truly just an emotional moment. And obviously, whatever happened got Miller kicked out of the game. So I can only assume that Doug McDaniel probably felt pretty passionate about whatever it was. But you're getting the Doug McDaniel that you wanted. And this sets up to being a guy that, I mean, unless something completely falls off the rails, you want him back next year to be one of your players.
Yeah, that is a fun Doug McDaniel that has played in this last little stretch of basketball. You pointed out that he had one pass that Coleman Hawkins didn't know what was going on. He had another one that I think it was intended for Moby, but David Gasson kind of got in the way. But you can really see that the light has turned on for Doug. One thing that is still a little bit concerning to me, and I know that it's gotten better of recent, but the 3-point shooting from Doug McDaniel still needs to get a little bit better.
Yeah, that was a little disappointing night. A couple of them I thought were good looks. I thought, eventually one of them might fall. It didn't, but one guy that did get a 3 to fall, David Gasson, he had a huge night, 22 points, 8 of 11 from the floor, 1 of 1 from 3. That was the significant one. And then he had 8 rebounds as well. He's been playing at a much better level this year, and really year over year, he's gotten better at K-State. And now you have a situation where he's putting it all together, and he's going to have some big nights like this for you.
And nice for him to bounce back too, because it had been 2 games that were pretty mediocre for what we kind of expect from David Kassan. So to him to bounce back and have 22 and 8 and only miss 3 shots from the field, I think was a nice little change of pace and more of like what we're used to. Not in terms of points, but just the energy, the rebounds, everything was there. Like this was David Kassan at his peak.
Yeah, you got the best of him tonight. The rebounds maybe could have been a little bit more, but it is what it is. We talked about Max Jones already. He took more shots tonight. You want to see him continue to be this aggressive. He had 5 rebounds. He impacts the game in a lot of ways. He's just a hard-nosed guy that's going to try and be involved in everything. And you're absolutely right. If you can get the NCAA to just be brainwashed into giving anybody eligibility back, you would love to fight for Max Jones.
Yeah, I think that you'd be crazy not to. I will say again, I mean, out of all of the guys this year, I think that Max Jones has probably been right up there with Brendan Hazen and Kassan in terms of guys who have shown the most effort consistently and diving on the floor. And I think that's what makes Max Jones an easy guy to root for. We kind of heard that he's a little bit of a Desi Sills guy when he committed to K-State initially. And I think that you're really starting to see that over the last few weeks because I mean, he seems like he's always the first one to the floor.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Brendan Hazen had the night shooting the basketball 4 of 8 from 3. Did exactly what you want. Didn't take anything but threes tonight. And then 4 rebounds, 1 assist. But the defense, again, looked at like it was at a level that I would not have anticipated him playing at. So he deserves major props for how he's found really a different version of himself. Like he's gone to a new level over the last couple of games and is playing in a way that I really did not think was possible for a player like him. So that should get you excited about he can stay on the floor in more situations and then moving forward that you think he can handle the role that he'll have the rest of this year and going into next year. Because that's, I mean, of players you want to keep, I think that's the number one player you want to keep going into next year if you're K-State, because you don't get many guys like him. You don't find 40% three-point shooters laying around in college basketball.
No, by the way, how about that lob that he threw?
That was the other thing. Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't know he had that in him.
Yeah, that was mighty impressive by him. And then we'll finish with Coleman Hawkins, who filled it up in a lot of different ways tonight. 11 points, 2 of 5 from 3, 6 boards, 7 assists. And he kind of had a hot and cold game because when it was going good for him, things were going well for K-State. When it wasn't, K-State was struggling. And I think you can see that it's going to continue to be that this team will play to the level that Coleman Hawkins is giving them. Now, when Coleman Hawkins has a good game, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to win. But if Coleman Hawkins isn't contributing in a positive way, or he's giving you a total negative, you're not going to have a chance to win with this team. So much of what K-State did tonight was set up by what Coleman Hawkins did. So you need to continue to get the better version of him, and you can't really have any lapses come Saturday in that game. You can't go through the stretches that we saw from him tonight.
No, but again, we're spoiled. Like another just okay game from Coleman Hawkins, and he has 11, 6, and 7. So
true. Yeah, he did it all.
He can do everything on the basketball court, and it's really fun to watch when he's going really well. Like tonight, even wasn't his best, but I think that it was still a very solid game.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, would love to go longer later into the night, but I know that everybody is probably tired, wants to get to bed. We'll talk more basketball either tomorrow or on Thursday and go over a little bit more of this game, what we've seen in the last 4, how that sets up for what comes on Saturday when KU comes to town, and we'll have that all going on. And then head over to On3 right now, find KStateOnline.com. You've got full post-game coverage that's coming your way there. DY was in Desert Financial Arena tonight, so you'll have his instant thoughts from inside the building down in Tempe. But that will do it for Drew Galloway. I'm Mason Voth. Also, if you're in Manhattan or in the area, there are some tickets left for K-State and TCU tomorrow night. The women going to be an electric crowd in Bramlage Coliseum. So I would implore everybody. This is not, if some of you are thinking, you've been doing ad reads for cats2ireland.com. And I would say that's a great point. You should go to cats2ireland.com. Or if you want single game tickets, go to kstatesports.com. But not an ad read, just telling you that I think you should do it. KStateSports.com. Go get your tickets if there are any left for K-State TCU tomorrow night, because you can go watch the Cats and the Frogs in a big time battle that could decide who wins the Big 12 this season. So get out there, watch it, and Drew and I will be back tomorrow. We'll talk probably a little bit about that and everything else going on with K-State right now. So we're out of here. Thanks for watching tonight. We'll be back again live Saturday after K-State KU from Bramlage.